Hey folks, I'm here at BitTech HQ and they've just finished reviewing one of these. It's Tesoro's new Gram XS low-profile mechanical keyboard, complete with RGB. Well, I think it's about time we took this back to the workshop and had a little bit of fun with it. Once again, back in Fusion 360. We were fortunate enough to be provided with some manufacturer CAD files this time around. This means I don't need to spend hours gathering all the relevant measurements by hand, but it's definitely not something that's 100% necessary. The plan is to machine a new housing for the keyboard that should make use of all the RGB lighting built into the switches. Being able to machine out all the correct dimensions means that in theory, it should just be a straight swap job. And it's time to go. I'm going to be using some 15mm cast acrylic for this job. It should transmit the light nicely. Cast acrylic is known for its wacky tolerances. Mine was way out of spec. In fact, some parts were only 14mm or even a little bit less in the center. So I ran a facing op to flatten it out more. Next up, it's time to cut most of the material. I'm using a 6mm double flute end mill, but would probably go with an 8mm single flute next time. Now the screws used in this board are M2, which means a really small hole. In fact, that's smaller than I can cut on the CNC with my current tooling to the required depth. So I used a countersinking bit to center drill the holes, and we'll do it manually on the pillar drill. Next up, I used the disc sanding attachment on my belt sander to add an even bevel around the edges. This would normally be a very simple step on the CNC, but I wasn't confident with the work holding on this piece, so I decided it wasn't worth the risk for something I can do fairly easily myself. Using the center marks as a reference, I used the center drill to widen the hole and then drilled through to the correct depths. The fascia plate holes are inset, so I used a 5mm bit to drill down to the right level. Finally, I finished it with a light countersink. To get the frosted finish I want for this, I'm going with 500 grit paper on the random orbital sander. The machine makes this much faster. If doing by hand, you can start with 320 grit instead. The board itself comes with quite a beefy steel plate on the top that's painted black. To jazz it up, let's sand that coating off, moving through 80, 180, 320 and 500 grit papers. I then moved on to soft pads, going from 500 to 1000 and a finally 2000 grit to get it smooth. To bring out the luster, I swapped to a lamb's wool buffing pad and some 6K polish. It's assembly time. Screw back together, pop the plate in, et voila!